Welcome to Unfiltered, the original performance by Just Us Performance Troupe for Social Justice, and Come to 11, Storytelling and Culture. The students sitting behind me came from across campus to enroll in a course. Over the course of the semester, they learned a research method. That research method is called autoethnography. And autoethnography maintains that before you try to analyze other people or other cultures, you need to pay attention to your own stories. What stories have made you who you are and made you understand the culture that you're in? They went through a series of workshops. Each week had a different prompt, asking them to remember a story from their life that had to do with social justice. Social justice is the hope and the goal for everybody to be able to live in a culture and pursue their utmost potential with safety, with opportunity, and without prejudice or stigma holding them back. They told a lot of stories. And then they each chose one. It was their story of social justice they wanted to share with you. Every story you hear tonight was lived, was witnessed, was reacted to by the body that tells it. These are their stories. This is their show. They wrote it, they staged it, and they produced it. It's been an honor to be their professor. It's been an honor to be their director. Please stay for a discussion with us after the show.
Who are you?
I am secure.
I am persistent.
I am strong.
I am open.
I am me.
I am more than a label.
I am a creator.
I am intelligent.
I am here for a reason.
I am positive.
I am determined.
I am honest.
I am human.
I am alive.
Goliath and the Incredible Hulk. Both were at one end of the rope while I was at the other, pulling and fighting so hard to win a game of tug of war that seemed nearly impossible. But you see, the story goes much deeper than Goliath and the Incredible Hulk. I had giants in my life that were causing a pain so deep, where I felt like I was being held down by chains that were created from my own guilt and shame. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to feel this unconditional love that I had heard of, but that I didn't know. 10 years old, with a heart made of paper, and all it took was one person to strike a match that in a second would destroy my heart and the peace that I knew so well. I was 10 years old, and I was called gay because I didn't fit in this box of what a middle school girl was supposed to look or act like. But you see, it wasn't the fact that I was called gay that was terrifying. It was the fact that I was terrified to tell my parents for the fear that they would reject me. I was afraid of rejection and the fear of man. 10 years old, and I first found out what depression and anxiety felt like. 10 years old, and all I was left with was a shattered heart and a set of chains that would lead me down to this road of trying to find love and acceptance in all of the wrong places. And you see, there's one question that follows us throughout our life, and it's this question of, am I enough? And that's the question that followed me all throughout middle school and high school. And by the time I hit sophomore year of high school, I was held down by the chains of anxiety and depression. I was held down by the fear of man, question of identity, if I was enough, if I could ever be loved. You see, I wanted to get back to my core, to find this happiness, to find freedom and joy in what security felt like. I wanted to be me. And you see, this road and this journey has been full of hurt, it's been full of pain, and it's been raw, and it's been real. And sometimes I just wanted to cry out in the valley. I just wanted to cry out. But it's been full of strength, and it's been full of growth. And the one thing that I learned is that my chains and this set of chains on my neck, they do not define me. They have no control over my life. They're not my name. And so I stand before you today knowing the truth, and that is, I am loved, I am secure, I am chosen, I am guarded, but most of all, I am Abby.
She was an unstoppable force, and when she danced, she was a force to be reckoned with. Energetic, animated, and free, she was also the greatest friend I could have ever asked for. She was my rock, but then she crumbled. Why did it have to take her away from me? Why did it have to get a hold of her and break her apart little by little? I looked on while she stopped eating, she stopped dreaming, and she stopped being. And while she flourished in her passion was what tore her down. She was never skinny enough and never fit enough. She never leaped high enough and never fit into her leotard the way that she wanted to. We loved coffee and chocolate and ice cream. We bonded over it until she started specifically ordering non-fat milk. Our sweet treats were no longer treats. It was a nuisance for her, but she wouldn't dare express that to me. She would only eat chocolate here and there for show to make it seem as if she was okay. We loved Chinese food until she started counting calories. She started bringing her own lunch to school, less and less of it. Things just weren't the same. I was alone. For months, she was spiraling and couldn't escape the cycle. Once a butterfly, she was now a moth shedding her scales. She grew tired and weaker, her skin pale and bruised, her bones for all to see. Her eyes weren't the same green, and when I looked at her, I didn't see her. I saw a shell. She didn't look at me the same, or anyone for that matter. I became hollow too when she was around. And still she danced. It was her passion. It was all she talked about. That and calories. That and how pissed off she was at the world. I cried and my heart cried for her. I reached out for help, but all help did was tear us apart. We were supposed to tour the world together and take on college together and be there for one another. I failed. She disappeared, and there was talk. The school was buzzing. Teachers approached me and I pushed them away. I was in the dark as much as they were. And if I called her, would she answer? No, she didn't. After weeks of agony, I called her again, and she did answer. She said she was away. Her 70-pound body was deteriorating while her heart pressed on, but she was getting help, the proper help that she needed, and she was happy. I cried. I wish I could have been her saving grace. It's just not fair. Dancing is an art. It's a celebration of the human body and its movements. No dancer should feel ashamed of their body. No human should feel ashamed of their body, for that matter. We were one, and now we're worlds apart. She's unstoppable. When she danced, I would cheer her on, and I still do.
For as long as I can remember, I've been a man of few words. I don't always say a lot, but when I do, sometimes goes unnoticed. I can listen to your problems, but you don't have time to listen to mine. Since I'm a man of few words, I always get asked,
Man, why are you so serious?
Hey dude, why don't you just smile more?
I get those questions asked on a daily basis. I'm quiet, but I'm not blind. I see the world in much different perspective than anyone else. Silence speaks when words can't. I can use my surroundings as strengths. Not saying anything is more powerful than saying something. So, if you see that quiet kid, comfort him. Give him strength. Treat him as you want to be treated. The world today has adapted to the extroverted person. Schools, sports, entertainment, all revolve around the extrovert. The society has brought upon a stigma towards quiet, shy people that they won't succeed. But in fact, doctors, lawyers, and even some presidents are introverts. So no, I'm not mad, I'm not depressed, just who I am. The quiet kid has the loudest mind. If you get to know the real me, you'll be surprised about the world I've been watching.
My story is about two worlds colliding. I went to an all-white Catholic school until my sophomore year of high school when I transferred to an inner-city public school. When I transferred, I realized that I had many common misconceptions about inner-city minorities, just like most of my white friends did, but even though I never thought of myself as racist. During a visit back to Trumbull to see my friends, one of them came up and asked me, "How's it going to school with all those black kids? I bet you've got no friends there." My friend Steven, he said this as a joke, but it wasn't really a joke. But I used to think the same way as him. I used to think that when I transferred, I wasn't going to have any friends, that I was just going to be an outcast. But when I transferred, I did make friends and everything was fine. But don't get me wrong, I was very skeptical of my new classmates at first. On my first day, I had to walk through a metal detector, which I never had to do for any school before. Also on my first day, I remember this kid, Kahari, he punched a cop. And that was just because he had drugs in his bag and the cop tried to get it from him. But every school does have drugs, and every school should have a metal detector, especially these days. But somewhere in between the basketball games during gym, the shared mutual hatred we had for our high school teachers, I became friends with my new classmates. During another visit back to Trumbull for a pickup game of football, we were short a few players, so I told some of my friends from New Haven to come play, and they did. And surprisingly, everything was fine. Even one of my friends, the one that came up and asked me how it was to go to school with all the black kids, he came up to me and he thanked me. I wasn't sure what he was thanking me for first, but upon explaining himself, he said that he never thought he was going to get the chance to meet inner city kids and actually be able to become friends with them. The group of kids that I introduced together on the football field that day are all still friends, even though we come from different sides of the city line.
My mind is a raging storm. You see, early on, I was diagnosed with ADHD and OCD, and this was topped with anxiety and a seriously bad temper. But hey, it's all treatable, right? So that led to a series of doctors, medications, until me and my parents found something that was working. Because that's when things are fixed, right? When things are working, wrong. For me, there is no solution. There is no cure. There is only the question of,
did you take your meds today?
No one could possibly understand how much I hate that question. I heard that question for years and years. Anytime my parents thought I was acting up, every time I heard it, I felt like I was losing a little bit of the semblance of control that I had in my life. Until one day in high school, I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm done. No more meds, no more doctors. I was going to handle my issues on my own. This trend, for once, it was good for me. I felt like I had taken control of my own life until this past summer. My anger, it had gotten out of control. I had infuriating phone calls with my mother, fights with my girlfriend every other night. If something didn't change, if something didn't give, I was going to lose my family and my girlfriend. So when school started back up, I decided that I was going to go to the doctor. And she handed me a diagnosis that would kick me in the teeth. Cyclic mood disorder. Trends of highs and lows that were making my life a living hell. For me, this only confirmed what I already knew. My mind is a raging storm. Waves crashing up and down, whipping me left and right with no end in sight. Roaring winds that take away any ability to focus or gain control. This sequence, it was endless. As the racing thoughts that have clouded my mind my entire life. I have always been this way. I will always be this way. There is no escape for someone like me.
90% of people between the ages 16 to 29 perceive Christians as judgmental. 91% perceive Christians as hypocritical, and 85% perceive Christians as homophobic. To misconceive is to fail to understand correctly. Misconception is a wildfire, and one that I have felt the flame myself. I am misconceived because of my faith. You see me and you say that I appear normal, but when I voice that I am a Christian, I am misconceived as hypocritical, judgmental, homophobic, etc. The flame of misconception is not foreign. In fact, I see its approach from afar. I understand why I am misconceived. Our view of Christianity has changed from 50 years ago and is no longer looked upon well, and the world follows suit. I understand the misconception, but others' actions should not define who I am or what I believe. I believe that we as humans all make mistakes. Am I judgmental? Yeah, I have my moments. Am I homophobic? No, my future son is gay. Am I hypocritical? Yeah, I'm human. I believe that the Bible says to love one another, not to love with limitations. I believe that if you want to perceive anything about Christianity, you cannot look at me or any other human. You have to look at who this religion is built on. Jesus Christ is to be the window and platform for conceptions to be formed. Would he build a wall to separate people from freedom? Would he alienate people because of their skin tone? Would he withhold the poor from having food? I can feel the heat in the room. I can feel the sparks rising in your chest. There's a misconception arising that I am evangelizing or exemplifying that per usual a Christian is attempting to prove that they are right and you are wrong. Or that I'm going to spit in your face for the amount of judgment I have. These are false. I want social justice. I want the world to know love. I want to live where we are left to choose our opinions in lenses of clarity. I want to be seen and heard for who I actually am, without any preconceived wildfires of misconception.
So, I stood in front of my church's congregation talking about a recent mission trip to Bangkok, Thailand. During that trip, one of the many things that we provided was giving out care packages to refugee families. Now, these families would tell us their stories of fleeing for survival. And while they told these stories, I could see the fear in their eyes. So this spurred me to stand in front of my predominantly white, conservative Southern Baptist church and advocate for illegal immigrants. Now, I tell the story not to say that afterwards I went on to become a furious supporter of this and raise awareness all across the country. However, I tell the story to contrast it with my vote in the 2016 presidential election. During that election, I voted for Donald Trump. And because of that, he's been associated with a lot of different labels, and people have tried to label me as the same. I don't reflect our president. That's just a vote I made. Because of that, one of the things that is very commonly associated with me is misogyny. I have a twin sister, and I love her so much. And of course, due to sibling rivalry, I want to beat her at a few things. But that doesn't mean that she shouldn't get every single opportunity to perform the same as me. That's just not fair, that's not right. I want her to be able to at least try. Like, where's the fun in beating somebody if they don't even get the opportunity to win? Also, I've been called homophobic. I mean, that's ridiculous. I believe that everybody has a chance at love. I've been called racist and xenophobic. And let me clarify, I don't think that everybody's the same. I think everybody's equal. I think instead of trying to judge people or ostracize them based on their differences, we need to embrace that. That's what makes America beautiful. That is America. We need to embrace each other's diversity and differences and celebrate that. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has regrets. I think I made a mistake that 2016 election, and I regret it. However, that was my choice. But remember, I'm not my president.
I am not my anxiety.
I am not ignorant.
I am not depressed.
I am not closed-minded.
I am not broken.
I am not a misconception.
I am not you.
I am not my disability.
I am not sugar-coated.
I am not angry.
I am not lazy.
I am not a deviant.
I am not the wrong size.
I'm not giving up.
In fourth grade, I hated English and math and science. Anything with words on a page, I despised.
Miss Cassie's class was the bane of my existence. She would round us up and have us popcorn read chapters from that week's book, or worse, have many spelling bees and reward those who could spell playground correctly. It was ridiculous. I worked just as hard, read just as much, and did more than necessary on every homework assignment, but I always came up short. My spelling test never got above a 50, my reading comprehension was awful, and reading aloud made my classmates whisper circles around me. After sobbing over failing test grades and public humiliation, my mom took me to take a test. I spent hours in a cold room where a woman asked me questions, made me write things I'd never heard of, and asked me over and over again how I felt about school. I hated it, of course. I was horrible at every subject that involved reading or writing. I got diagnosed with dyslexia shortly after. The woman said we could fight it. She said there were things we could do, practices that would help me understand words, letters, and sounds with more ease. But the next few years were miserable. I spent an hour and a half every other day in a reading clinic. After-school play dates were replaced by phonics, relearning the alphabet, and decoding every sentence in my homework. My friends would ask me where I was headed after school, and I'd start to tell them, but then the conversation would end. I tried to be brave and bold as my friends moved into the academically and intellectually gifted class, but my bitterness boiled inside me. They would ask me why I wasn't there with them, or tell me that if I just worked hard enough, I could get there one day. But I was working as hard as I could. Frustrated with the theirs and confused by I before E, I entered middle school despising school. 2 years of tutoring had improved my skills, but the ruthless middle school friends that I surrounded myself with took shots at my difficulty with certain words or embarrassment when asked to read aloud. By 10th grade, my skills had improved tremendously. I'd stopped going to the reading clinic, and I was taking AP and honors courses in high school. I felt like I'd finally beat it. I was done with the disability. But the reminder's always there with me. Every time a friend puts an asterisk next to my text or laughs when I have to ask how to spell a basic word, it is there. I don't think I'll ever be cured because there is a constant reminder from this world that I am broken.
I'm a guy who likes to have a good time, but I mean, who doesn't? But where do you draw that line from having a good time into having too good of a time? Can you even draw that line? Or do you have to depend on those close to you to let you know that you might be addicted to a feeling? I was raised by drinkers, and yeah, I get it. Everybody drinks. My parents drink a lot. Every night was its own kind of alcohol-fueled shit show. So, by the time I was graduating high school and got accepted to college, I was ready to get the fuck out of their house. College was great. I was making a bunch of new friends and networking, but I was regularly the most fucked up person in the room. But it was all good, until I got kicked out of college. I lasted about a month. I earned a couple of drunken disorderly charges. No college credits though. Fuck it, I figured. I'll do school later, maybe. So I bounced around for about a year. And then I decided to enroll in community college to meet chicks. So I did. And it was cool. And at this point, I was partying like a lot, even by my own standards, which were loose. And this trend built up steam for about another year until I found myself living in a retrofitted garage with my dog and a crazy group of friends. These guys were wild. But still, I was regularly the most fucked up person in the room. Except now, I wasn't with a bunch of college freshmen. I was with professional parties. This cocktail of craziness culminated in me making a life-changing set of decisions after a New Year's Eve party in Nashville, Tennessee. After a lengthy night fueled by hard alcohol, bad decisions, and strong drugs, I was walking back to my hotel. I got to the hotel and there was 2 cops stationed out front, so I started talking some shit because those cops represented authority, and I fucking hate authority. So this went on for a bit until I was arrested, handcuffed, for some reason released, yet barred entry from my hotel. So I did the only logical thing and scale the adjacent building in an effort to return to my room on the 3rd story of my hotel. One misstep. I fell 35 feet. I tumbled down the ravine, and when I came to at the bottom among the rocks, I looked down at myself and saw that I was broken. My right leg, my pelvis, most of my ribs, both arms, my skull in multiple places. The recovery was long, and it was difficult. I had to learn how to walk without a limp again, how to write my own name. But now, I can look back on all that and know that I am so much stronger from all of it. And I can say confidently, with hindsight, falling 35 feet and breaking half the bones in my body was the best thing that ever happened to me.
I was about 5 years old when I was told to smile more and that I looked like a sourpuss. I was on my way at a field trip to volunteer with old folks, and I was paired with an 85-year-old man, and I was coloring the leaf for him when he told me,
Ah, sourpuss, why don't you smile more?
I was confused at first because I didn't know what he meant, and I was perfectly fine coloring my leaf. My parents even started to tell me to smile more because a frown is a nonverbal action that would decide whether or not you were a joy to be around. A simple resting face that later in high school would be called resting bitch face would sway someone from treating me kindly, becoming my friend, or making communication with me whatsoever. People telling me,
oh, you should smile more, you look pissed off.
What if I had just heard some horrible news and I was trying to privately mourn? And who actually likes people constantly smiling at them or smiling at very inappropriate situations? You would feel uncomfortable and creeped out, and you'd be judging that person for that reason instead. You would be judging me for my creepy smile that wouldn't go away instead of my resting bitch face that might intimidate you. Now, I started thinking to myself, maybe it's not just me, which it isn't. There are plenty of guys that have serious faces, but they're usually considered confident looking or tough. But when a woman makes a face that seems angry or frowning, she's told the phrase,
A woman with a face like that shouldn't scowl so much.
what if I was perfectly relaxed? What if I was upset? What if I was mad? I shouldn't be judged by an assumed facial expression that decides who I am or what I'm thinking. I've been told, oh,
You must be a really mean person.
I'm not. Oh,
Oh, you must not like when people talk to you.
I like company and conversation. Also,
You must not have a lot of friends because you look really pissed off all the time.
that's not true whatsoever. It's just my face. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not sorry. I'm not going to hide by a fake smile just so society will feel comfortable.
I couldn't believe I was about to start my first day in middle school. I was so excited and couldn't wait to run out the door and get in the car already. I was ready to make new friends and this whole new experience that was waiting for me. I remember getting out of the car with my brother. We said our goodbyes and went our separate ways. I remember entering the classroom and being greeted by the new science teacher. As I took my seat, I saw the rest of the students coming into the classroom. I was a little concerned because I didn't know any of them and didn't recognize any of them either. The first day of school wasn't so bad. I was just getting used to the setting. A few weeks into the semester, things took a turn for the worse. After I'd gotten my lunch and was getting ready to sit down with the rest of the guys in my class, when I approached them, they told me I had to sit somewhere else and that I wasn't allowed to sit with them. I recognized some of my friends in class, and they said nothing when I had to sit alone. It wasn't just that one day. This pattern of bullying continued. They witnessed the harassment that I endured every day, but didn't speak when I was tormented. I just kept sitting alone in the same place for the next few months. There was one student in particular who made it his job to make my life miserable. One time he shoved me so hard I fell to the ground. I didn't know why or how. I eventually told myself, enough is enough, and I need to put an end to this mistreatment. I went to my older brother and explained what was happening and told him that I was being bullied, and he said he would handle it. The next day, I was ready for the confrontation and for the bullying to finally end. I was nervous, not for myself, but I was afraid of what my brother was going to do or say. He threatened the kid to leave me alone, and he looked horrified when my brother told him this. The rest of the day, he just shook his head at me and gave me dirty looks. And he did leave me alone, but he didn't stop there. The rest of the class was still harassing me. I went to my parents and told them that the rest of the class was still harassing me, and they said they would handle it. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting in the principal's office next to my mom. She explained to the principal what was happening and that I was being bullied, and they told me to give them the names of the students who had been harassing me. But I couldn't. I just wouldn't. It would only get worse for me. Finally, after enough reassurance, I eventually gave in and gave them the names of the students. I thought it was finally over, but it wasn't. As the end of the school year drew closer, the new middle school was opening up and half the students were transferring to it, including the people who harassed me. I was finally ready for a fresh start and a fresh year.
Growing up, anytime a video game gave me the opportunity to create a character, I took it. I always gave them tattoos. I didn't really think anything of it. I just thought they were really cool and I made them stand out. Be different. But as I got older, my parents always warned me, if you get a tattoo, we're going to kick you out of the house. But as any rebellious teenager may do, as soon as I turned 18, I got my first tattoo. I loved it. It became a hobby for me. So I continued getting more and more as I got older. But as I got more tattoos, I realized that something was changing. When I went out in public, I could hear whispers. I see people staring at me. Often, random people would come up to me. They would say good things like, "Oh man, your tattoos are so cool. Where did you get that?" But a lot of times, they're negative things like,
Dude, you realize those are permanent, right?
"No shit," obviously. But I realized there was a bigger problem ahead of me instead of just people's opinions. As I grew closer to the end of my college career, I had to start looking for a job. Now, as you may know, companies think tattoos are inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. But the ink in my skin doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change how hard I've worked in school. And it certainly doesn't change my work ethic. So why am I getting overlooked?
So the other day, I was asked the following question.
So, what's it like to be in your body?
And I thought about it for a while. I really did. But I think I thought about it a little longer than I needed to, because the truth is, I already knew the answer. It's no surprise I'm a big guy. I'm 6'5" and weigh 315 pounds, and I've been a big guy my whole life. In fact, I was bullied for it all the way through school, and I think a lot of people assumed that as I got older, the bullying would stop, and I could start to live happily in the body that I was given. But I don't. And so, to best answer that question, here is a list of what it means to be in my body today. I often get comments, and I think a lot of it is because people have expected me to play sports.
Hey man, you play basketball?
Yo, where'd you play football?
And on that note, I actually joined my high school football team just so I could tell people that I did play football, and maybe they wouldn't look so disappointed. To the surprise of many, when I tell people that my favorite sport has been tennis, the response I typically get is the following. Whoa. What? That's very common, because I don't look like the average tennis player. Sometimes I would get compliments about my weight. I never really asked for them, but people would continue to tell me things such as,
Hey, you look like you've lost weight.
Dude, you really found out looking swole, my dude.
thanks. Other times, I would get compared to a polar bear or a teddy bear, and I can sort of understand the teddy bear comment because, it's cute and cuddly and whatever, and it's nice, but there's still a reason that people associate me with a bear. I often get associated with big or ugly characters in movies. I've been called Shrek. I've been called Hulk, Syndrome from The Incredibles, Andre the Giant, Jolly Green Giant, and anytime in a movie there was a bigger and ugly character, I would often expect with success to get compared to that character, and it usually wasn't because they were attractive. whenever I had friends that wanted to go out for Halloween as a costume, it was pretty easy for me to figure out which character they had in mind. But being my body means a few more things. Being my body means that my mom is never satisfied with the size of my jeans. And it means that I actually hate shopping because the thought of trying on clothes tends to bring that same disappointed face. It means that talks at home include a personal trainer and exercise, and it means looking in the mirror and not liking what was back. It means I don't really enjoy doing team building exercises or sports because I'm usually the liability, and it means being asked to lay off the dip regardless of whether it was my first chip or my 20th. I really don't like being asked to run because people that would ask me to run growing up always asked me knowing they would win. And it means I don't really feel comfortable asking for more food. It means going oversized to avoid getting over-criticized. And it means being conscious, overly conscious even, of who you're sitting next to. I think a few more things. Being my body means that I can't ask that girl out because I'm not fit in that baggage. It means that I'd rather just ditch the possibility entirely than have her be the one to tell me that. It means that I don't tell my parents when I get fast food. And it means that I do not like sitting in the back of a car with two other people because I'm under the impression that I will take up space. And I don't want to take up space. I think most of all, being in my body feels like a burden. It feels like my physical presence does others a disservice. And it hurts. It really hurts. And I'd love to tell you that as life went on, those problems just kind of mitigated and they stopped being a problem, but they didn't. The game's just changed, and I guess I'm still learning how to play by the rules.
So when I was 7 years old, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and I didn't know what it was or what it meant or what my life was going to be like because of it. I spent a week in the hospital getting shots, meeting doctors, and watching my life change forever before my eyes. 2 years later, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. I had a seizure and almost fell face first into a fire when I was at my childhood friend's house. And I was put in an ambulance and whisked away immediately to the hospital. Little did I know that a hospital or an ambulance room, or an ambulance or hospital room would become a familiar place to me. I spent years getting EEGs, EKGs, MRIs, and CT scans done. Just trying to be a normal kid, not knowing when the next seizure was going to happen or if it was. But it was like this for years and years and years. But after 3 years, I was finally regulated with medicine, and I was supposed to be okay. But then I had a seizure after that. Then I had one more following that, and it was these last two that put the nail in the coffin, diagnosing me as a permanent epileptic. In high school, I was also ridiculed by my teachers and some other classmates for falling asleep in class a lot. My parents would ground me and yell at me for being up on my phone at night and everything. But I wasn't, and I ended up getting tested for narcolepsy and found out I had that too. I fall asleep in less than 30 seconds, and I fall into REM sleep in less than a minute. And REM sleep is what happens when you dream. So as I was in high school, I was struggling with these illnesses, and I was still trying to live the life of a normal kid. I was playing sports, I was applying to college, and I was making good grades, but I noticed that I wasn't able to keep food down during most meals. So I chalked it up to stress, and I quit the golf team, which I played for 3 years. But it persisted for months. And so I went to yet another doctor, and it turns out I had gastroparesis. After my first semester in college, I'd gotten really depressed, and I met with several psychologists and therapists, and they didn't help me out much. But so afterwards, I went home and I met with my neurologist to see how my new narcolepsy medicine would be affecting my brain. So I had an MRI and EEG done, and
he told me that there was a tissue deficiency in my brain and in my body, and that I should expect to be diagnosed with many more diseases and illnesses. After that, I met with my endocrinologist, and she told me that my body wasn't getting nearly enough insulin absorption, and that any other type of insulin my body would reject. And so they gave me an age of 35 years to live, is what I should expect. So I immediately started to cut and burn myself in secret, because I was sentenced to a shorter than a lifespan than I felt I deserved. But so one time I was with a friend of mine at his apartment, and he was leaving for the weekend to go home, and he told me he'd see me later, and I was like, yeah, I'll see you later, man, but I didn't know if I really was going to, because after he left, I took the knife from my bag and I cut myself a lot deeper this time. But he came back seconds later. He forgot his toothbrush, and that day I learned something, that I can choose life, and helpfully hope others that may be thinking otherwise. That I may not be here for as long as I hoped, but that I can bring hope for as long as I can. Thank you.
According to Dr. Andre Saunder, 30% of students who deal with bullying face depression and anxiety before they reach their 30s.
According to the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, every 62 minutes, at least one person dies as a direct result from an eating disorder.
According to Psychology Today, 50% of U.S. are introverts.
According to Pew Research, 58% of Americans think that racism is a big problem. That's an 8% increase in the last 2 years.
According to the National Alliance on Mental Health, in ages 13 through 18, 1 in 5 will experience mental illness in their lives.
According to the novel Unchristian, 49% of people have a negative impression of evangelical Christians.
In a recent survey conducted by Reuters, 1 in 8 people who voted for Donald Trump regret doing so.
According to Tennessee Dyslexia Center, about 40 million American adults have dyslexia, but only 2 million of them know it.
According to the National Institute of Alcoholics and Recovery, children raised by one alcoholic parent are 4 times more likely to be alcoholics, and children raised by 2 alcoholic parents are 9 times more likely to be alcoholics themselves at some point in their life.
According to Marianne LaFrance, a Yale psychology professor, 20% of smiles are authentic.
According to the National Center of Education Statistics, in the school year 2006 to 2007, some 8,166,000 students ages 12 to 18 reported that they were bullied at school.
According to a survey done by JobSource.com, over 30% of hiring managers cite tattoos as the third most likely reason a person doesn't get a job.
According to the American College Association, in a general study of college males, 42% were found to have bodily dissatisfaction. According to the World Health Organization, 3,000 people commit suicide every day.
So what do you hope for?
I hope to find freedom and vulnerability.
I hope to see change for the better.
Hope to have acceptance for introverts.
I hope for equality among races.
I hope for a world that understands.
I hope for lenses of clarity to form our opinions.
I hope for a colorfully diverse future.
Hope for a world where disability doesn't mean broken.
I hope to find my reason for being.
I hope for a world where people don't judge others by their cover.
I hope for a world where people can be treated fairly.
I hope for a world where different is okay.
I hope for a culture that accepts all sizes. I hope for a world at ease with our mortal bodies.
Hi everyone, and thank you for coming to our show. This year, I was lucky enough to be the assistant director of Unfiltered, presented by Just Us Performance Troupe for Social Justice. And I emphasize lucky, because you see, it was just last year that I was standing in their shoes, walking into a room full of strangers for some sort of storytelling class, whatever that means. Well, as I come to learn, it means a lot. And now being able to see this group of people evolve from beginning to end into this beautiful performance, well, that means a lot as well. You see, I've gone through a lot of struggle in my life, and I know a lot of people who have been through a lot, and I'm sure that everyone here in this room has been through a lot as well. This world is not a fair place. I was 9 years old when the spots on my body made me different, made me stand out. The bullying came and went. I was 20 years old when I first experienced chronic pain for the first time, how it takes over and infiltrates every aspect of your life, mind, and body. And I was 21 years old that I learned through my story and through their stories that autoethnography can make a difference. Through this, through everything that you just saw, there is a purpose, there is a meaning. Our stories, our deliveries, and our experiences, they can help change this world. This world is not a fair place, but it can be, and I believe that one day it will be. So take from this that social justice is important. Every single little effort we make adds up, so keep pushing and keep moving forward. Now I'd like to open up the floor for questions. Thank you.